Brazilians will head to the polls this weekend to choose their next president. Sunday marks the first round of elections, but presidential candidates aren't the only ones on the ballot. Congressional members, governors, and state legislatures will also be chosen as well. But for the big vote, incumbent Dilma Rousseff and main rival Marina Silva are the main candidates trying to be president. Aecio Neves is a distant third. A candidate must win over 50% of the vote to avoid a runoff, which would be held on October 26th. Now, she's Brazil's current president and the first woman to run the country. Polls show that President Rousseff has a slight lead ahead of Sunday's big election. Now, despite being set up for success, Rousseff's reign has been a difficult one. Stephen Gibbs explains.
Dilma Rousseff beginning her presidency in 2011. The country's first woman president had just been elected with a comfortable 55% of the nation's vote. But for many, she was largely an unknown quantity. A former oil minister and chief of staff to her predecessor, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Lula, as he's known, had hand-picked her as his successor. He was the most popular president in Brazil's history, and millions of Brazilians were more than happy to follow his advice. And with the country's leftist Labour Party, Rousseff had credibility. She's a former guerrilla fighter who had been imprisoned and tortured in the 1960s during Brazil's military dictatorship. For most of the first 3 years of her presidency, Dilma Rousseff enjoyed relatively high popularity. The economy was growing, albeit slowly, and the government continued to lift millions of people out of poverty. Relations with the US were often strained, particularly when revelations emerged that Washington's National Security Agency had targeted Rousseff's mobile phone. Relations with China seemed stronger. China is Brazil's biggest trading partner, and Rousseff is a major proponent of the BRICS grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa.
Eu tenho absoluta clareza da importância dos BRICS.
I am absolutely clear about the importance of the BRICS. Whether the economy is growing or not, the BRICS is a project that is going to last.
Os BRICS.
But domestically, things have been going less well for the president. In June 2013, widespread protests erupted across Brazil, not directly against Rousseff, but against generally poor public services and corrupt politicians. Rousseff went on national television to say she was listening to the protesters' concerns and even agreed with them. But the episode marked the beginning of a decline in her popularity.
One thing both Dilma Rousseff's friends and allies do concede is that the president is by no means a natural politician.
She doesn't have charisma. I mean, she's not like Lula. Lula has a great charisma, speaks very well in public, right? She doesn't have that. She does not communicate very well. She doesn't have charisma. She's like a technocratic, type, and that doesn't help her at all, I think.
The president's detractors accuse her of being unable to take criticism, something her former ally turned political opponent, Marina Silva, has made a point of during televised political debates in this campaign. Friends of Rousseff, here seen visiting her father's hometown in Bulgaria, say that in person she's much warmer than she might appear on Brazil's often unforgiving media. But image does matter in politics. And will Brazil's voters decide they like Rousseff enough to elect her a second time? Stephen Gibbs, CCTV, Rio de Janeiro.